Hey, today we're going to talk about the say do matrix and personality. Basically, the thing is that what you're saying that you're going to do versus what you actually do are totally different things. But there's a lot more to this that I'm going to be talking about. So, for example, there's this quote that says, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say," by Ralph Waldo Emerson. So it's a little bit looking at, what do you do versus what do you say? And they can be pretty out of alignment or incongruent. And that can mean that a person is full of crap, right? And, you don't really want to be a person who's full of crap. And you probably know people who are full of crap. So this is about analyzing whether or not you're on the good side. Or so this is about finding out whether you have integrity and knowing whether you're saying what you're saying just to say things or you're actually doing certain things. So it is partially about reliability, where being able to be trusted is doing what is expected or what has been promised. So it can be reliable if someone is doing what they say they'll do, and there's something called a say do ratio of how much of what you say are you actually doing. And that can help people appear reliable or have integrity. But that's not the only thing that's important in life. You're not supposed to just be this reliable, high integrity person. There's other things at play. That's why we look at psychology and why we look at personality. There's a lot of factors going on. So in the say do matrix, we get to track what humans are doing, what people are doing from talking and saying things versus doing. And why might these both be important? So, really, the reason why we're going to look at the say do matrix is so that we can understand what is the spectrum of doing things versus saying what you're going to do. Sometimes we do what we say we're going to do, and sometimes we only talk about what we should do and what we might do and what are the possible doings of things. And sometimes you're just doing things without seeing if you really need to get anything done. And you're doing all kinds of things, and no one asked you to do that, and no one cares that you did something. And so that's on the doing side. So you got doing and saying on the various spectrums of things. So, first, from the left side, we're going to look at doing things for the sake of doing things. So, you're doing things your way, your decision. This can be referred to as sleep or organizing and self oriented, which is the internal driving or the internal decision maker, which is DI, and internal organizing is OI. So, we have that here. And then we have doing what you said you would do. Then we have doing what you said you would do, which is consume, or OE, which is your external observation and internal decision. You're looking at all possible ways and you're using your own decision maker for this. So the individual is deciding to do what they said they would do. And so that's just looking at all possible ways. So you still got a little bit of that, anxiety that the right side will have, where you're just talking about all the possibilities, um, but you're still making your own decision, and you are, it's coming from you what you're going to do. Next, we have the say do, where you're going to say what you're going to do, but you may not do what you say. So this is where you're kind of like blabbing about your way, but when it comes to what you're doing and what you're deciding on, you're really confused as to what you yourself want, because you're not using an internal decider, you're using an external decider. You're asking other people for permission and things like this. And you're still having your own way. So you have the internal observation. So that's your way, but you're looking at all possible decisions, being like, I know it works this way. I know the sky is falling tomorrow, but should I go to this person's house or should I go to the store or should I get some toilet paper? This is you have your way, but you will be open on the decisions. And then finally, you'll have the most chaotic one, which is when I'm in, where you have all the possible ways, you're playful, you're looking at external decisions or all possible decisions, and you're looking at all possible ways with gather or external observing. So that's all possible ways and all possible decisions. Very chaotic. Would not recommend, but you're saying what you're going to say. You're going to be aware. You're going to be the first one to notice that there's something wrong in the environment. You will be able to see things beyond your periphery. You'll have a bigger understanding of the world, but you're not going to be confident in your own way and your own decisions. That's going to be the hard part for this side. So you got playful on the right, where you're just talking about random stuff. And then you got sleep on the left, where kind of just doing, you're kind of just doing things. And you're doing it your way, your decision. Is it the right thing to do? It may not be. No one cares, possibly. But if by some luck people care, then you're really well off at that point. So that's the say do matrix. And yeah, so I'm just bolding which things are kind of the more stronger choices. So if you're doing things your way, your decision, it's a lot less movable. You have a lot more control in your life naturally. And yeah, you're going to have fewer problems in that area. But when it comes to the things that are not in bold, like looking at all possible ways or all possible decisions, or in this case, both, then you're really, going to go wherever the wind blows you. And that is very unfortunate, but it is kind of how things go. And it can be a good thing. There's a silver lining to everything. But yeah, so this is about the say do matrix and looking at the objective personality animals from this perspective. So this is the say do matrix. Are you going to be doing what you're going to do? Are you going to do what you're going to say? Are you going to say what you're going to do ahead of time so people are warned in advance? Or are you just going to say what needs to be said? And that is just going to give people warning as to what's going on. So it's kind of like going from the introverted side on the left to the more extroverted side on the right. And we'll take a look at some examples to ground us. These examples are going to show you why this stuff matters, because some people are going to be doing a lot more without asking for permission, and some people are going to be saying things a lot more so that we're all informed in society. So first we're going to cover my stack, or where you're just talking about things, just so you can be aware. This is about saying what you got to say, and there's going to be a growth path for each one of these, right? But first we're going to go over these examples. So we're looking at all possible pathways, all possible decisions, saying what you got to say. So the archetype for this is the podcast bro, or someone who's just going out and giving talks. So if you notice, the kind of template of a podcast bro is someone like Phil DeFranco, who's one of the original guys who did it, and we got the newcomer Steve Bartlett and Mel Robbins. Then you got comedian Chris Rock, as well as ex Navy SEAL David Goggins, who has a lot to say. But this is a set of examples of people who have been through a lot of things. They've been through a lot of crazy things in life, and they're noticing a lot of patterns, a lot of things going on, in current events, and how everything is a reflection of the internal state, but they're noticing it in the external world. And they're able to talk to people because they've seen so many examples of people in their lives that have run through all kinds of situations. And so they're going to say what they're going to say because they've looked at all possible pathways. They've looked at all possible decisions. They've kind of lived in the extroverted world to a significant degree that most people who haven't left the house have no idea what realm of possibility exists out there. Here, yeah, I put the images out there so that it kind of reflects, the play ping ponging of someone who's just like looking at all these decisions and all this ball of anxiety, this Rolodex of possibilities. Um, and yeah, here's the types for each of them. You got your EPs, your ENFP, ESFPs. as well as an ESTP. And then you got ENFJ, play first, Steve Bartlett. So this is the play energy. It's about talking to all kinds of people. It's about looking at all kinds of pathways. They could move tomorrow. They could talk about current events, politics, philosophy, self discipline, comedy, you know, any sort of niche topic. It's everything is fair game. And so it's not very settled. It's not very focused. It can be, but definitely going through the entire thing that the world has to offer. You know, it's kind of a lot, but that's why we're going to cover sleep next so we can kind of see the opposite of that. So, for the people who are more sleep oriented, they're doing what they got to do. It's not about asking for permission. It's not about getting more examples. It's not about looking at alternate pathways or a plan B. You don't need that. These people, they know what they're doing and they're going to make it work. If it doesn't work, they're going to try to make it work. So it's a very different energy. And if people don't like what they're doing, they're going to keep going. If everyone doesn't like what they're doing, they're going to still keep going. The play people, they'll kind of move and adjust and, you know, until they go through therapy and figure that part out. But these people on the sleep side of things, they will figure it out for themselves early on, or they are just naturally inclined to not care. So here we got the sleepy people. So this is a bunch of sleep first from a personality perspective. We're looking at the introverts, the introverted Martha Stewart, who does, I don't know what, some kind of interior design stuff that, you know, I probably should have looked up before I put her on here. But she's very calm. She's got a very calming energy, you know. Um, Brian Johnson has his pathway of trying to live forever, that he's not backing off no matter how many people make fun of him. Sadhguru on the lower left here, he's got his own meditation practice that, again, people might make fun of him or say that he's like a fake guru or something, but he's not backing down from that. And he's just going to keep doing what he's going to do. And we can all learn from this. You know, we can learn from either one. The play one, I probably could have done it more justice, but the sleep is important too, where you are operating on your own pathway. No matter how much people make fun of Elon Musk, he's just going to keep going unless someone puts him in jail or something. But yeah, he's just going to keep doing business stuff. Sadhguru is going to keep doing meditation stuff. Layla Hermosi is probably still going to do business stuff. And she's on the bottom right. And she's got her way. You know, she's going to do what she's going to do. Same for Brian Johnson and Martha Stewart. So here are the types. You know, it's not a lot to play with, not a lot to mess with, because if you try to mess with them, they're going to ignore you anyway. So it can be very hard-headed and stubborn, and, you know, good luck trying to change them because it's not really going to happen. It's not really going to work. So that can kind of be a downside. If, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day, they may stumble into success and all kinds of good things, and they really have. But and it is good to be confident, but sometimes you do want to adjust a little bit. But anyway, to each their own. And we got INFJ Sadhguru, ISTJ Martha Stewart, INTP Elon and Brian Johnson, and then INTJ Layla. Okay, so this one is about saying before you do things. It's about not just doing things blindly. Let's make sure people are invested and bought into what we're going to do before we do it. So we're going to look at all possible decisions and we're going to still try to align on a singular pathway. Let's figure out what that pathway is together as a people, agree on that, and then go in that direction as fast as possible or something like that. Whereas in a focused way, which can appear as a fast way. So we got Frank James, who has a YouTube channel, a few YouTubers here. Actually, everyone has a YouTube channel. Jessica McCabe, Tim Ferriss, Oprah Winfrey, and Hassan Minaj. Each one of these people, they have their pathway that they've settled on. It's maybe not the best pathway, but it's their pathway. They're going to make it good. If it's not good, they're going to make it fit. They're going to make it work. Maybe they'll adjust, but if they adjust, it'll be very dramatic. If they change their pathway, it will be dramatic. So they're looking at all the possible decisions. They're looking at all the people in their group and their audience, what they're saying. They're taking that in. And yeah, so that's looking at your pathway and all possible decisions. And basically, just to kind of go through that, Frank James has his audience of who he's serving, but he also is trying to figure out what he wants. And so he has his channel. He's trying to use his own decision, but he is affected by what people are saying, what people say in the comments, who he's engaging with. But he's got a pretty good idea for what he's got going on. And this is the How to ADHD person, Jessica McCabe. She has her topic. Maybe she talks about other things at this point, but it basically started off with ADHD and maybe other, neurospicy topics. And you can check out her YouTube channel. That's pretty good. But yeah, that's How to ADHD. Good stuff. And then you got Tim Ferriss, who, did the 4 hour work week and 4 hour, a bunch of other things. But he's got his way of how he approaches productivity and all kinds of things. And yeah, he's probably not going to move on what his way is, but he is talking to everybody. He has his own podcast and he's talking to people, but he's pretty settled on how he does things. And then you got Oprah Winfrey, who has her own talk show, and she has a way of talking to people, getting people to open up, and taking care of her guests or her audience and just people to have a focused discussion on certain things. She'll have her own book club. She will curate things, and herself, as well as her audience, are on a certain pathway that she's carved out for everybody. And it's kind of like putting a lot of thought into a gift. That's kind of what this all reminds me of is you're not just doing random things. You're talking about what you're going to do so everybody is on board. And this is what the next one we're going to cover, consume. That's what they don't do. So this is about getting people on board before you go and do a bunch of work. It's a good idea. More people should do it. I need to do this. Did I ask anyone if they need this video? No, but I felt like I should. But I could have gotten people on board before I make a video like this. That would be the approach for saying before you do things. Hassan Minhaj, he's got his own version of it, whether it's comedy or politics. He's got people in his audience who are telling him what they want from him, and he is putting that out there. He does a podcast and whatever else. But yeah, he's doing all kinds of things, and it's still his way. He still has his judgment. He still has his way of how he looks at society, and he's going to come back to that and make all the decisions based on kind of his commentary on society. That's what he's coming down to. So that's his kind of topic of focus. So yeah, it's in summary, this is all about like having a particular focus and incorporating everybody from the tribe, everybody from your audience. Those are the types. You got INFJ, Frank James; ESFJ, Jessica McCabe; INTJ, Hassan Minhaj and Tim Ferriss, as well as ENFJ, Oprah. So now we're going to talk about doing what you should say. Doing what you should say. So you're not really saying anything, but you're going to do what may have been said. So this is not the say do. You're not telling people what you're going to do. You're just doing things. This is the whole like, you're not asking for permission. You're just doing things. Your decision. You've looked at all the pathways. You're not consulting anyone. You're deciding that based on everything you've taken in, you're deciding what needs to get done. I have consumed pretty high, so I can do this too. That's what I did here, making this video. I looked at all the possibilities and I decided this is the video that I want to do. So that's how I came to that conclusion, and that is consume. You look at the whole smorgasbord of things where all the other images, I kind of cropped them. This one, I did not crop them, because that would be an antithesis. That would be antithetical to consume. Consume is like, I made this for you. So here we go. So we got Denis Villeneuve in the top left, who is an ENFP director, basically taking it all in, created the movie Dune and a bunch of other films that are probably really good, but they take up a lot of space. It's very luxurious. It's looking at all possible details and pathways and things and landscapes and concepts. And it's looking at all this symbolism and bringing it all together. Um, and that's his art style. And he has his audience really sit with it. And then you had Jane Goodall, who, rest in peace. She died recently. But when she was younger, yeah, she was working with these chimps. She's working with these chimps, animals, monkeys, things like that, and treating them just as you would treat people. But she was studying them very closely, taking lots of notes, and doing real scientific work with animals. And yeah, it's looking at all possible pathways of what she could have done with her life, but she decided to work with animals. And she didn't equivocate on that. She didn't back down. She didn't take in information from other people to decide what to do. She decided to do it on her own. And then you continue on, and you could see basically every single person on here. You could see their consume pile, or the things they've gathered. You could see that in the images. You got Denis Villeneuve with his set, Jane Goodall with her animals, Bill Burr with his thoughts. You can see Cal Newport with his books, and you can see Taylor Swift with her guitar. And yeah, so Cal Newport with his books, he has looked at all the things that technology has to offer, and he's like, I'm good with that. Let me just do my deep work. Let me just look at a book and decide what to do on it. Basically, doing research. He does a lot of work outside of technology just so that he can kind of stay in control of what he's deciding on doing. And he looks at all the possible pathways and does what he needs to do, and he's not asking for permission from anyone. So he's a very productive academic person. But anyway, he's written some, and so Cal Newport has written some good books. Check it out if you're afraid of technology or you feel like you should wind down your technology use. Speaking of someone who has technology problems, you got Bill Burr here, who, really what he does with his comedic career is really what he's doing with his career as a comedian, stand up comedian. He has a lot of thoughts and things that he views about society, and he tries to get that across with his comedy, his own podcast, and things. He's got a lot of this consume energy in his head, and he's trying to get that out there to the people, but he doesn't know exactly how to bring people on board. But he'll do it. He'll make a decision on what he wants to say, and he'll craft his jokes around that. Now I have Taylor Swift, who is deciding how she wants to run her music career, whether it's Apple or Spotify or somebody else. She is not letting anyone else decide what kind of music she's going to put out. She is in control of what kind of music she wants to put out, or at least that's what it looks like to me. And there are all these possible pathways, all these things she could be doing, but she at least is able to make the decision from her end. But yeah, it can be a little bit ADHD like still, where the play people like myself, we are looking at all the possible pathways and all the possible decisions. At least the consume people, they are able to leverage their own interest, their own decision. So it may be the case that I drew the short end of the stick by being very playful and all that, but at the end of the day, we really need to be able to do all of these things. And yeah, I mentioned the types ENFP for Denis Villeneuve. We got INTP for Jane Goodall, ISTP for Cal Newport, ENFP for Bill Burr, and ISFP for Taylor Swift. The growth path. So, this is really the meat and potatoes of what this is supposed to be about. It's supposed to at least tell you, okay, now that you talked about doing and saying, like, what are you supposed to do with this? Right? So here is a recommendation. You want to move from the darkness to the light. What does that mean? So if you are more on the sleep side of things where you're just doing what you feel like doing, it is basically random doing. And in order to move from random doing to something more relevant, you do need to say what you need to say to the people you need to talk to. You're probably got your head in your sand box or whatever, you've probably got your head so far up your own asshole that you need to have a conversation with someone or five people or 10 people. You are probably not talking to enough people. And so whatever you're doing doesn't really matter all that much. So, anyway, that is the recommendation for the sleep people. It's just a recommendation. So, to go from random doing to doing what you need to do or doing what the world needs you to do. So the consume people, which was which was the last one we just covered, they need to move on from useless doing. They do need to start informing people what they're up to so that when they do the things they do, it'll be more relevant with the society and the audience, that there won't be such a disconnect. It's really cool to be artsy and creative, but it can be very lonely. And when you say what needs to get done, there will be more people to come and help you that are possibly more trustworthy, but you're going to have to figure that part out. But the idea is to go away from this useless doing of things. It's nice when celebrities have it figured out, but I think normal folks really need to tap in to some of the darkness in order to get to the light. Okay, so for Blast, it's a lot of kind of useless saying what you're going to do, but is it really having depth? In order to have depth, you need to spend a lot of time with a thing. And it's not about asking that many more people for permission. It's about just doing what you want to do without getting permission or without talking to people sometimes. Doing what needs to be said. Rather than getting people on board, maybe you just do what you need to do. You can just do things. And that will result in more helpful saying of what will be done. Because you're going to be saying what you do, but it's not particularly helpful all the time. It's not particularly deep. That's probably a better word for this, because the problem with Blast is that it's just not deep enough. Finally, we have Play. Play needs to go from random saying things about random topics to doing what needs to get done. This will end up resulting in a more relevant version of saying what you need to say, you know? And it's really great that playful people like myself are able to look at patterns, look at things, look at what's going on in society with people and news and all the things, and we understand everything of what's going on. But, that's not really what we need to do. We need to actually do what needs to get done so that when we do talk and we do say things and we do have a podcast or a mic, that the things we're saying are deeper in a way. It's not just, oh, I saw this or that, or it's not as much navel gazing. It's like, Habib, what have you done? What have you actually done? What's something deep, you know where you've kind of gone down into the trenches and really gone deep with a thing? This is what the playful people need to really do is just go deeper, go an inch deeper, a mile deeper, however deep you need to go, because otherwise the things you're saying just are going to, again, similar to blast, it's going to lack a certain depth. And getting everybody on board, getting everybody to have awareness and consciousness is just not the most efficient or effective way to live your life. So you've got consciousness, you've got your own awareness. Now, how are you going to take that awareness and take that consciousness and go deeper? That's something all of us could benefit from. So the summary is that this video was meant to really help you understand the objective personality animals from a different perspective. Maybe you didn't get that, or you did get that eventually. But sleep is about doing what you're going to do. Consume is about doing what you say. Blast is about saying what you're going to do. And play is about saying what you're going to say. That's why podcasts are very, playful. Everyone needs to do all of these things, all of these combinations, or else you won't be walking the walk or talking the talk. Really, I mean to say that it won't be effective, because the more playful you are, the more consciousness and awareness you'll have. And the more sleep oriented you are, the more you're going to have depth and work that's, just going hard at it with or without permission. You're going much deeper with the sleep. But work for work's sake is not enough, and that's why you do have to talk to one another. You do have to inform people through blast of what are you about to do, what are you embarking on, can you get people on board, and then consume is that once you've decided to do something, can you go deep? Can you still take in new sources? Can you still take in relevant information and new ideas and brainstorming and interesting things and make it fun? But yeah, we all need to do sleep, consume, blast, play, and hopefully it'll help us walk the walk or talk the talk. And yeah, it's tied to the human needs that we talk about in objective personality. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this, or if it made any sense to you, please do me a favor and hit the like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and leave a comment if any of this resonated with you, or if you really identified with one of these, even though your personality type might be different, or let me know which one you resonated with the most. Are you someone who does things, or are you someone who mainly just says things and talks? Are you a talker or are you a doer? How do you see yourself?